Welcome to a new year, friends. January is the time that a lot of us are focusing on self improvement or health goals or new habits. And I'm here to cheer you on. I'm also here to invite you into something a little deeper than the typical New Year's resolutions. Will you join me this month as I explore identity formation? Our circumstances, beliefs, relationships, and decisions are shaping our souls in both good and hard ways, honestly. And I want to understand exactly how that is happening and what I can do to create the identity I want. Today, I'm talking to my good friend, Bob Goff. He's an author, speaker, and unofficial spokesperson for Living Like Your Love. He's the perfect guest to start our series because, from what I can see, Bob's been formed into someone joyful, hopeful, and full of love. Hey, Bob. I just love the fact that we're friends in real life and both sharing messages about the same God. Because from the outside looking in, we have pretty different approaches in some ways. I'm all about suffering and hardship and darkness. And you're traveling around the world blowing up balloons and writing books about whimsy. So somehow it all fits, doesn't it? And I love it.
Yeah.
Please say something about that if you'd like.
No, I love that. You nailed it.
I do too, Bob. I do too. Listen, my listeners and I are doing a deep dive on identity formation in the new year, which is one reason I am so thrilled to chat with you today. For as long as I've known you, I have been so drawn to your approach to life and your friendship with God. You are someone who actually lives like you're loved, and it touches every part of my life. In my own experience, this ability was the catalyst for realizing that God loved me no matter what I could or could not do. It took having a stroke to come into agreement with my belovedness. So my question is, how did you come to understand that you were a beloved child of God?
Oh, that's such a great question. And first of all, it's just so great to be together.
Oh, I agree, Bob. It is. It blesses me that you're here.
Yeah, whatever it is that gets us together, I think God does his best work in community. And for many of us, our community is spread across the country and across the
That's
world.
right. Yeah.
And so I would say that idea of how do we navigate it's not a tension, but they seem to be pulling in opposite directions, like our
Right.
suffering and then our joy. And I just had, for no particular reason, this image of the spokes of a tire. And at the center is Jesus. And so these spokes that are pulling in different directions are actually important. If all the spokes pulled in the same direction, you'd have a wonky tire.
Yeah. Yeah.
The round wouldn't roll. But because we live in that circumstance, I was thinking about Paul, and he was telling his friends, I think it's Romans 8, that suffering produces endurance, and endurance, character, and character turns into hope.
Yeah, Bob, I deeply love Romans 8 as well, but that is the Romans 5:3, one of my very favorite passages. And it goes on to say that hope, which suffering ultimately produces, will not disappoint, not put
Yeah.
us to shame. Oh, I love that.
I really hope that people can feel the not a tension between these spokes, but that they're complementary, that there's both joy and suffering, that there's hope. I love the definition of hope in Hebrews 11. It's just like it's confidence in what you're hoping for, the definition of faith, that confidence in what you're hoping for, assurance in what you haven't seen yet. And that feels
Mm,
like anticipation to me. Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I think I've right on Romans 8:19. It says that the entire
Mm.
creation is up on its tiptoes in the Message translation,
Yes,
waiting
yes.
to see what will be revealed. So I think in answer to your question, I think I'm kind of up on my tiptoes, living in anticipation of what happens. And while I come across as a pretty upbeat, like unicorns and confetti guy,
Yeah.
like I'm actually like really introspective too. I get really sad, like deeply sad
Mm.
about things. I just don't go on social media when I'm
Right.
deeply sad about something, or when I'm really feeling conflicting emotions, like
Mm.
somebody has not just misunderstood you, but it almost feels like a betrayal. Like you
Hmm.
won't find me out on social media sorting that stuff out. I'll just spend a little bit of time reflecting. I'll find a couple safe people in a community, safe people that are more interested in who I am than what I do. People
Yeah.
that won't tell
Yeah.
me what to do, they'll remind me of who I am. And
Yeah.
that you're one of those safe people. Like people come to you
Oh.
because you're safe. You're Switzerland. All
Oh,
you
well,
need is a
thanks.
bobsled and a bar of chocolate, girl.
Oh my goodness. Well, listen, Bob, I think actually that is what everybody should be doing. Take those harder emotions offline and process them in IRL, in real life, rather than over Instagram. That's extremely unhealthy. So I love that you are doing that. And I might add, I love that you're not one note because no one is. So if anyone tries to say you're just the unicorn and balloon guy, I know too much to think that's true. I know um, every person who can get to the joy of unicorns and balloons can also access some depth because they're a human being and feeling life. They're not numbing out.
Yeah, I wouldn't say just the idea of whimsy, but a strategic whimsy. And so there
Mm,
can certainly be a veneer, and it's not a inauthentic veneer. It's like actually true joy and hope and
mm,
anticipation. But if you ever saw in science when you were a kid and they sliced the earth in half and they said, this is the crust of the earth, and then the rest is mantle and core, and that
mm,
crust is pretty thin. It feels thick when you're standing on it, but compared to everything else, I would say there's a veneer of joy and anticipation, hope, and underneath that, a mile of strategy. Like you
mm.
actually know why you're doing what you're doing.
Oh
And
my
it's
goodness, I love that strategic whimsy. That is
yeah,
such a
that's it.
beautiful idea. Yeah, I love that you shared that. Bob, I want to ask you, how do you think understanding and internalizing our belovedness can change our identities for the better?
I think you start seeing yourself more accurately. And a
Mm,
great way to start getting a bead on seeing yourself more accurately, because it's just such a complicated cocktail of emotions and experiences
mm,
and failures and a couple successes along the way, is that we start seeing other people the way that God sees them. And then we'll start get so used to seeing that different way of seeing them that we'll start seeing ourselves. So as
mm.
soon as you kind of practice it, like with other people. I know when somebody says something kind of awkward or lame, I always imagine a little thought bubble over their head and it says, I'm being really helpful right now, even though they're not being they're not reading the
Funny,
room.
yeah.
So somebody that might say something lame to you, instead of responding to whatever they picked up off the stupid shelf, and it's always waist high, and there's always a lot of things to say. I just think, can we just reach up a little bit higher? And if we could start
Mm,
seeing them with a little bit of compassion that they think they're being really helpful right now, then I don't feel like I need to respond with something to kind of box their ears or let them know that's not the way to interact, or that they need to work on their people skills a little bit. And when we start seeing other people that way, then we'll start getting that muscle in shape so we can start seeing ourselves that way. That we, like Paul, I keep doing what I don't want to do and I don't do what I do. I mean, that's just Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. And then there's a,
yeah, amen. My
yeah,
goodness. Okay, Bob, you are on quite a whimsy kick at the moment, and I am so here for it. In fact, you just wrote a new book called Catching Whimsy, which, if you're watching on YouTube, look how beautiful and fun and whimsical it is. I love it. And I love blue, so I'm here for that cover. When I hear when I hear the word whimsy, I think of something fun but lacking in substance, to be honest. But you're giving it a rebrand, I think. So my question is, what exactly is whimsy by your definition, and how did it come to be a focal point for you in this season?
Yeah, see, it's the whole idea of it's backed with a ton of intention. Again, because all of creation is up on their tiptoes, I want to get up on mine in
Hmm.
anticipation of what will happen. It was a year ago that we're back to San Quentin again tomorrow for graduation of these students. I've had about 800 guys that have been in my class I'm teaching there over the years.
It's amazing, Bob. Truly astounding. So
So
beautiful to watch.
last year, I arrived with a Santa costume on, and there's nobody wearing costumes in San Quentin. I promise you that. And so we
Wow.
got to the front gate and just did this kind of Jedi move, like you want to let me in. And so I'm sitting in the yard, and there's a guy that's been in my class for a long time. He's actually a Manson family member, and he came and sat on my lap. And he said, I've never sat on Santa's lap before. And
Oh.
so, and I told him I've never had a serial killer sitting in my lap before.
Oh my
So
gosh.
this is a first for both of us. And we had
Totally.
this conversation, and I asked him what Jesus asked every blind guy I ever met, standing at a gate. I said, what do you want? I let him know this is what happens when you sit on Santa's lap. When you crawl into the lap of our Father in heaven, he
Mm.
wants to know, what do you want? And then I think he wants to go a little bit deeper and vet that and say, why do you want it? Because if you want applause, join the circus. If you want Jesus, find hungry people, thirsty people, sick people, strange people, naked people, people in jail, widows and orphans. That's it. There's your shopping list. Stop looking for a plan for your life. That's the plan. Those 8 things.
Oh, I could not agree more. I recently said everybody in our world is trying to find their people. Find your people, find your people. And I keep thinking that is available to maybe 1% of the people in the world. The rest of us need to find the people without the people and make them our people. This world would be a very different place then.
Yeah, but I just think of the things I've not taught these guys anything over the years, but I've learned a ton. And there's a couple of the guys that actually get out and to track with them. There's one guy that I really like that is serving the homeless on Skid Row in LA. And I just
Mm.
love, he's just a humble guy that's just, he knows why he's doing what he's doing. And I would say if you were a hedge fund person and you know why you're doing what you're doing, then that's awesome.
Oh,
And if you
yeah.
feed the poor, then that's awesome. But to just be really clear about that, there's no like bony finger pointed in your direction.
Right.
There's no shame in it. Just like figure out, pause and say, hey, why am I doing what I'm doing? I did that as a lawyer. I know Jay did that as a lawyer, saying like, I'm capable of it, but do I
Oh,
feel
yeah.
called to it?
Mm.
And at one point, I just walked into my own law firm in downtown Seattle and I quit. I actually
Yeah.
got out of the elevator and the receptionist said, who are you here to see? I said, actually, that's my name right behind you. And I realized I hadn't been in the office in almost a year because I'd been off doing other stuff. I feel like my world had started gravitating towards some of these people in Matthew 25, hungry, thirsty, sick, strange, naked. And I just it was time to quit my day job. And I love that you and I get to like continually part from our capabilities. Somebody listening right now, maybe you're on a jog. Maybe
Mm.
you're stuck in Atlanta traffic.
Yeah.
I'll pray for you.
So true. Praying for your friend.
Yeah, but that thing of just say, okay, so new day, new me, and if I'm a new creation, let me act like it. The thing that'll be consistent is that we are His beloved, as you said, but the thing that'll change is how we want to release that into the world. And
Right.
so we don't need to do it just because we're capable of it, but to just say, hey, what is that? And whimsy would say, I know you're what you're capable of, but what might happen if? and then insert whatever that crazy thing is. I got back 2 weeks ago from Uganda, and we've been operating schools there for a real long time. And we broke ground on a university, which cracks me up because my worst subject in school was school. But I didn't want to have just a university. I wanted a zoo. And then I've learned you can't call it a zoo, it's a habitat. I'm like, whatever.
Oh,
So
okay.
somebody corrected me. They boxed my ears right away. And so I wanted an animal that didn't bite people and be hard to lose. And I'm like, giraffes. And so this would be strategic whimsy. I know the first lady, I don't know the president, but I know the first lady. And so I met with her and told her all about the giraffes. And then she ran across the compound, grabbed her husband, brought him back. And for the next hour, the team at Love Dust was just talking to her about giraffes and to him, and he owns all the giraffes. What somebody might do is sit in a chair and say, gee, wouldn't it be swell if, but not activate that. And I'm
Mm,
just saying, whimsy will get you out of the seat, off of the couch, away from the screen, and you'll say, what if faith guides your step, we serve a mighty God, and what would be the next creative move that we could make in that direction?
I love that so much. Amen. Okay, so Bob, how about you sell me on a whimsy? Why do I need to incorporate it into my life? Let me say that again. Why do I need to incorporate it into my life? And what does it have to offer to me, Bob?
Yeah, I love the idea. I did name this book Chasing Whimsy. I
Mm.
named it Catching Whimsy. And so whimsy isn't something that sticks to you like a dryer sheet onto your pants. You actually have to go out and do something to find that. Do you ever remember as a kid uh, blowing bubbles with a little wand and then catching the bubble on the wand? Did you ever do
Oh,
that?
of course, yes.
Yeah. So it's that kind of Mr. Miyagi move where you just like you do something. And I feel like the same thing again, if faith guides your steps and you're listening, to say, what would be your next courageous, inventive? And it's not being hip, like inventive, like coming up with a new hoodie, but to say, like, what would be actually a really beautiful expression? And it may not be giraffes for you, and I hope it isn't overseas. I hope you'll go across the street because you'll find a
Right.
ton of stuff in the scriptures about loving your neighbor. And the only things you'll find out about crossing an ocean, Paul got shipwrecked, and Jonah, you know how that turned out. So,
Yeah.
so what I want you to do is make it happen. Don't talk about the ends of the earth. Let's talk about the end of your street. And then you can do a bit of an audit to say, hey, what does each person uniquely need that I could like I could make possible for them? And there's something beautiful as you start pausing over each neighbor, pause over each person. What does Jay uniquely need that only you could do for him? And it'll be love and affection, certainly, but you know him to his core and you know that thing. And so it isn't about the big, grand, whatever. It's just like knowing somebody so well that you pick the lock and you say, I'm going to scratch where that itches right now for you. I'm going to leave out, I'm going to give sweet Maria a daisy and it's only going to have 3 petals left on it. And then she'll look puzzled. Then she go like, "Oh, I get it. He loves me. He loves me."
Yeah. Oh,
It's all about
cute.
where you start. So that kind of thing. Jay is such a tender, sensitive guy. Is he knows how to like pull the things out of you to meet you in those times. And I just want to like that is whimsy on wheels. It's caring more about somebody else's stuff than about your stuff for a moment.
Okay, I think I'm sold. I think you did it because that's so beautiful. I absolutely love watching you and Sweet Maria's marriage. It is so beautiful. How many years married are you guys?
Oh yeah, 38 years, 3 months, 7 days.
38 years. We're a little behind you. We're 20, so you got 18 on this, but we're hoping to get there. And
Well, I had to pursue Maria for a real long time. I think I'd take a little while to warm up to. I think she's still warming up to me. So, but that idea to even in the pursuit of the people and the things and your friends that you love, to say, what if I did this? I'm going to make a jigsaw puzzle. I'm going to write a letter on the back. I'm going to take my favorite photograph of us together, and I'm just going to mail them one piece at a time. Like that would be whimsical. If you have a kid at college, like they are going to run to the post office to see, did I get another piece? And they'll be living in anticipation, even though they know after the first piece, they know what that's picture, but still they're like, let me just like, I just want to get it. I want to crack the code on what's written in the back. And they'll start guessing what it might say. But like that is that engagement. And I think that's what Jesus was talking about when in Galatians 5:6, he said, the only thing that matters is faith expressed in love. And
Mm.
so that is what I think about when I think of whimsy.
Oh, I love that so much. Bob, your arms always seem wide open to possibilities. You see the question, what if, as a wonderful question and not a scary question. I want to understand how I can be a person like that. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about how I can trade fearful what ifs for hopeful what ifs. I like to say, instead of what if, what I want to do is move to what is in the story, not what if. But it is so hard to do that. The truth is, when you've lived through such immense trauma as so many of our listeners have, and disappointments of any and all kinds, the unknown of life can seem so, so scary. So, how can I start, and maybe our listeners start, seeing the possibilities for God's goodness in the uncertainty rather than being afraid of all of the unknowns in our stories?
Yeah, I think you go back to the origin of your like your biggest fear or the way that you approach things with a bit of apprehension. It could be wisdom, but you just have that pause and to say, I wonder when I started first feeling that, and go back to the scene of the crime, the little chalk outline, which is little 8-year-old you, or whenever you intersected a whole lot of pain or uncertainty. And so once we can see that, then we can understand it. Then we can take it to Jesus. But if you just say, like, I'm scared, which is a legit fear, but it's usually a complicated mix of many things. And so let's start teasing that about. So as soon as we can see it, what these are the four things I had some stuff happen when I was young, and I got in my mind that I wasn't wanted.
Mm,
Uh, and so I started masking how I interacted with people with just a bunch of yippee skippy, right?
right,
Because
right.
I wanted everybody to like me, but I didn't want to go to depth and let anybody actually know me because the underlying thought was I'm not wanted. And it would hurt so much if they actually knew me and they didn't want me. But I decided in advance where we're going to
Right.
end up is they're going to abandon me. And
Mm,
so you make a rule, and the rule is
right.
actually, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm
So
tracking 100%. Yes.
the rule is actually kind of scaffolding for your wounded little heart. You just don't have the emotional tools to deal. So you make a rule, and that scaffolding is helpful at the time. But now I'm like 22 years old and can't get a date. And the reason is I'm
Right.
just that silly, happy guy that never goes deep with anybody. Nobody wants to hang out with that. Oh, everybody wants to have that guy around, but they don't want to be dating that guy. And so you have to go back and say, where did that rule come from? And was it true then? Is it true now? Does it still need to be true in the future? It's just
Mm,
such an honest question, but you approach it for having seen what it is so you can understand it. So then you can take it to Jesus, a God that says, make your requests known to me. But he says, I know all your requests before you know them. I think it starts with making the request known to you.
oh,
Like,
it does. Yes,
yeah,
you're exactly. Listen, I've had enough therapy to know you have to face it to replace it. You've got to look it in the eye, stare it down to do something different.
yeah. And then you say, I don't think I need that scaffolding anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to find a couple safe people that I could be fully known, fully cared for, somebody who has taken that journey of
Oh,
understanding
gosh.
that they're beloved. And it's
Yes.
oftentimes somebody who's been through a lot. And so it caused them to go on a journey they didn't want to sign up for, but yet it was somehow assigned to them. And so find safe people. You want to
Yeah.
find somebody who's gone through some ish, like just
Yeah.
gone through some really tough stuff.
Right. I know. I try not to discriminate, but I have no time for people whose lives are perfect. Give
Yeah.
me the like people who've been through some stuff, and I'm like, oh, good, we can be friends because you don't have to deal with the small talk. You kind of just, yeah, you live differently with those friends. But I
Yeah.
try not to discriminate. I love all. Um, just a couple more questions, Bob. This is so rich. Thank you so much. Bob, lately I've been learning that the things I once thought were feelings, like hope and joy and belovedness, are actually habits that I have to form. Hope doesn't just happen to us. No, no, no. It's not a passive thing. I have to build the muscle of hope by putting the reps in. I like to say recently that the feeling of hope did fail me. The feelings of hope have failed me, but the habit of hope has carried me. That habit has carried me time and time again.
That's beautiful.
So I think you might agree with me here, and you just did. So, yay. So, my question is, what's a habit that you once mistook for a feeling, and how did you start building that habit?
Yeah, I have a habit. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but your resting position is leaning forward. Like
Uh,
even right now, you're like leaning forward. My resting position is leaning forward. And it's such a different vibe if I was like kind of leaning back. And a lot of people are
yeah.
spending time, they're engaging their life leaning back and getting
Oh,
comfortable. And I just love this idea. Find your resting position. No shame in this. Find your resting position and say, can I just move 1 degree forward? Can I just tilt my body, tilt my head, tilt my
totally.
attention 1 degree forward? And there's something beautiful that starts happening. You'll find people are more engaged in your conversations with them. You're 1 degree more interested in them. You're 1 degree more interested in what's happening. I'm a note taker. I take notes constantly. I bet I send myself 100 emails a day. I get home, I'm like, him again, block. But what I do is here is a habit that's an unlikely one. I did away with having quiet times. I bet 30 years ago, mine are super loud. In the morning, I take everything that I wrote down the day before and I do what Paul said, just check it against scripture. And so if somebody says, how was your day? I don't just say fine. Like there's a whole lot more. I got 100 emails on how my day was. And people who are leaning forward, living in engagement in their life, take notes. You could write it on your palm if you want to go Palm Pilot on that, or you could say, drop yourself a note or scratch it into the fender of your car. But just take note of that. Otherwise, a telltale sign is that somebody will ask you how your day was, and you'll say it's fine, which
Right.
isn't a bad thing. That's not an indictment. But I think there's a lot more, and a great practical habit is to say, when somebody asks me, how was your day? I'm going to ask them, how much time do you have?
Right. I love that. That's incredibly powerful and necessary. Goodness, it's really how I want to be when I grow up, Bob. Thanks for
Yeah.
leading the way.
And
I'm
also this idea of checking it against scripture instead of just saying, otherwise you're going to be quoting Tony Robbins all day. And he's a
right.
great guy, but Jesus is better. And I like that idea. Faith guides your steps to know how does that thing that connected with me, that idea, that metaphor that you gave, how does that connect with my faith experience? And is there anything in the scriptures that talk about that? And if there is, take note of it.
Absolutely. Okay. You are Bob Goff. Your name is nearly synonymous with love. But even you are still being formed and shaped by your life and relationships and circumstances beyond your control. I want to hear about it in real time. So, my question is, what is forming your identity right now? It could be something really big or really small or really hard, whatever you want to share.
Yeah, we've been making some decisions as a family about, and I'm planning on outliving everybody. But we've just been taking the longer view to say not what works, but what lasts. And
Mm.
so stepping back from your life and say, what's actually going to be lasting? I know writing books I find very tedious. How about you?
Yes. Oh my word. Yes.
Yeah. It's
Whoa.
like every word is spelled differently. And yet, there's going to be a time where I'm not available. I'll be in a jar or a snow globe. I don't know, but I'll just not be available. And I want to have something that's leaning up against that jar. I want to leave something for my kids. And so that's very much present. It's kind of in the front of our mind right now. When you hit 65 in the Netherlands, there's a thing it's called Swedish death cleaning. Isn't that interesting?
Oh
And
yes.
yeah. And what
Yeah.
you do is you
I,
just start tidying things up. Yeah. And so I'm not planning again on going anywhere anytime soon, but to just start tidying up things. What's up for the Iroquois Indians? They think about the seventh generation. How is my life going to impact seven generations from now? I'm trying to shift what I do to that longer play, like a retreat center. Like, what if we could get that going and then have people feel welcome to just get better at whatever they need to get better at? What if I
oh,
did that? So that's the shift within Team Goff. We're just taking a little bit longer view, what will last, what's going to outlast us, and then trying to take courageous steps in
mm,
that direction. Here's a great verse again. If faith guides your steps and you're listening in, it's from the book of Acts and it's 4:13. I think it says they saw the courage of Peter and John and they knew they'd been with Jesus. So,
mm.
like that idea, we're trying to do courageous things as a couple, individually, as a family, that will leave some evidence that we don't have to tell people we'd been with Jesus. They would just figure it out.
I love that. I love, Bob, that you are such a guide to me in how to do this life. I'm 42 and I'm guessing you are now 65 or not.
65, heading towards 66, charging hard.
You are charging hard. I love it. Okay, so you're a little ahead of me on the journey, and yet I have found it so beautiful and so just I soul filling that so many places that hire me to speak will have Bob Goff be the speaker the year before me. It's this unexpected delight because I'm like, if that energy is what they I don't know. There's some link there. I haven't exactly figured it out, but like your energy, your joy to my hope somehow
Yeah.
really ministers. I don't know. It's really cool. And then what's also really, really wonderful that's happened in recent years is that we're at a lot of the same events
Yeah.
speaking.
I've been
And
loving that.
I'm loving that too. It's just a gift, just a gift to learn from you in real time and see just you ahead of me in this journey through life. And I'm honored to watch and learn as you do make legacy like decisions. It sounds like it's inspiring to me.
I think there's an intentionality to it. I have a
Right.
friend teaching me some sign language. He's in San Quentin and he's teaching the deaf community. And he's already taught 60 guys in San Quentin how to do sign language. And the sign language for church is just make a little platform like a diving board with your hand that isn't the one you throw a ball with. And then you make a C and then you tap it. So that's church. But the sign for hot chocolate is the same sign, and you just spin it around a little bit.
I love it. So
And I love the idea that maybe what we could release into the air supply is a little tap on the shoulder to remember our hope that there's real live difficulties. I mean, you've been so courageous in facing obstacles and headwinds, but you didn't make a setback a campsite. You didn't
right.
say, I'm camping out right here. You've said, I visited the place. I know it. I'm still exploring. And yet I have this bright hope. I want people to smell like the church and smell the marshmallows as well. And it's not just yippee skippy. Underneath that is the entire range of emotions from despair and insecurity and all of that to hope and anticipation.
Oh, I love that so much. I think that's so beautiful. I love the fact that the sign for hot chocolate and church are almost exactly the same
Isn't that
ones.
awesome? Changed my
Yes.
life.
And for those listeners who didn't catch what San Quentin is, and you've caught on by now, surely, but it is the prison where Bob visits regularly and ministers so deeply to inmates. It's glorious. Bob, the concluding question I ask on the GoodHard Story podcast is simply that: what is good in your story? What is hard in your story? And how do you live in the tension of both in your good, hard story? Because we know, our listeners know, and you and I know that life is both good and hard at the very same time. Those are not mutually exclusive concepts.
Yeah, that's such a great question. And what immediately sprung to mind is how people have an idea of who we are from afar, because they have
Totally.
an idea of who you are and who Jay is. They'll have an idea of me and somebody else. And so oftentimes people think of me as the happy guy. And
Right.
indeed, I'm a pretty upbeat guy. And yet, like we were talking about, these times that were just deeply introspective, and I can get super sad and just like bummed out, like if not just being misunderstood, but feeling like a betrayal of a friendship, like that even still stings today. And I think a lot of people listening have experienced that in one thing or another, and it makes me not a hero or a victim. And I want to kind of get away from some of that language,
Mm.
but instead to just lean into what it feels like to be us. And it's a wide range. And yet, when you and I are called upon to go somewhere, they don't want to have me get up there and be all bummed out.
Right.
They
Yeah,
want to.
totally.
And so
Totally.
here's the dilemma for each of us, whatever
Right.
room we walk into, large or small, that how do you present your most authentic version of you? Because otherwise, I'm going to be like the party clown that shows up making balloon animals,
Right.
and I'm not feeling like the party clown. I don't want to make any balloon animals, and yet we can feel hope and we can meet the moment. We can
Mm.
say, "Hey, I'm usually a pretty upbeat guy, but have you ever experienced those times where?" And so you can just let people in a really gentle way, but don't like fake, don't meet the expectation of what everybody expects you to be that day, because otherwise, then we become a caricature of who we are. We
Right.
aren't really us anymore. We're a version of who we are to meet the expectation of somebody. Like if they expect that you are going to come across a certain way, I just want to be freed up, that they would be such an honoring thing to God and to the people to just be who you are and just tap into it. But it's going to take some hard work. You're
It
going
is going to take some hard work. That is such a powerful point. I personally relate so deeply that I very much am full of hope in Jesus. I'm super exuberant personality, and yet I never want that to get in the way of communicating whenever I share that there's sorrow in the story
yeah.
and hard
Mhm.
stuff. And I think it's always complicated to authentically show up and not really worry about how other people are feeling.
Yeah, I think of an honest request from a father in Mark 9. He just says, "I believe. Just help me about with all the parts I don't believe right now." And I
Mm,
think that just delights Jesus when we can get authentic. I know it connects with people as well because we
mm.
can just say, "Man, I've got some questions." I think the whole story of Ananias and Sapphira would have turned out differently if they just gotten real about where they are. Like I got faith, maybe not for all of it but for most of it.
Right.
And if we can just tap into that and get real with it, then people go like, oh, they'll see that kind of courage and they'll know you'd been with Jesus.
I love that. Let's end there, Bob, because that is a beautiful ending. And I am so grateful for you and so excited about this new offering. I wonder if you will share a moment with us about it, or I can, whichever. But again, here's the beautiful cover of Catching Whimsy, available everywhere right now. And anything you'd like to share with us about it, Bob?
Yeah. My hope in writing the books and doing that kind of tedious work of running everything through spell check
Oh gosh, no
is
kidding.
to it would be a tap on a shoulder from not a finger in your face. And my hope would be that people in our faith communities, oftentimes they're awfully good at hitting themselves. And I just want to remind people we're not piñatas. Like, and when you hit yourself, it's not candy that comes out, it's other stuff.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
want to say, like,
Seriously.
stop hitting yourself.
Yeah.
Settle into this idea that you're beloved. Have a reminder, a tap on your shoulder, this idea of remember in the scriptures 8,670 times. I mean, it is a theme to remember. And if you could have somebody who's safe, maybe less guide and more Sherpa. A
Mm.
Sherpa
Yeah.
just wakes up early, asks you what mountain you want to climb, and tells you what you don't need to take in your backpack to get there. And they set the ropes. So I would say that just asking people what mountain do you want to climb today? Is it your fear? Is it your hope? Is your wherever? And to say, hey, you don't need to take all that stuff that you've been
Yeah.
carrying around to get there. So let me help set the ropes. And then you go up whatever mountain you want to climb today. And I think that's what we do. We're there to help people get up their mountain. So that was the idea with a book. And I want my kids, when I'm not around to tell them, I want some of these words to hang around to tell them.
Oh goodness, I'm with you there actually. I'm a little behind you, but I'm there too. I'm like the thought of my kids reading something, seeing something, listening something just
Oh,
thrills me to think of the impact of the
yeah.
generation. So really, really cool, Bob. And you are impacting way more than just future generations in your family line, my word. You are impacting more than you'll ever know. And it's an honor to get to watch you
Sure
go.
we
And
are. We're on the adventure together, and that's the happy part.
amen. Amen. God bless you, friend. This has been such a wonderful conversation. And I am going to commit to reading every single of the 365 entries in Catching Whimsy and yeah, incorporating more whimsy into my life.
Yeah, thank you so much for what you add in. And I think the whole idea is that we're all like individually, we're just such a mess. But collectively, I think we make one really well-adjusted person. And so this
It's
value of
so
community.
true.
So
Yeah.
that's why it's the story about the body parts and that we all together can pull this off. But individually, it's like we need a symphony, not a bunch of unicycle riders.
That's it. I completely agree, Bob. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Thanks a million. Love you.
Yeah, love you.